Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It's Good News Tuesday, and we're going to cover all that good stuff that's happening today. And maybe not everything, but most things I'm covering are being good.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and get into our headlines. Today on Before Coffee, a natural weapon. Study shows large herbivores keep invasive plants at bay.
Good Tuesday. The Ethernet is still going strong after 50 years.
As Ireland's smartphone school ban is approved, the town where it all began.
And more nerdy news. We are now communicating using space lasers.
Banksy's real name revealed? Unearthed 2003 interview seems to unveil artist's identity.
Those stories and more, which is November 21st, 2023, Voltaire's birthday. For coffee.
Okay, first news story. This is all about our big, giant herbivores like elephants. Elephants are my favorite animal, actually. I love elephants. Large herbivores, this is from... I'm not sure where this is from Peter F. at Aarhus University. Large herbivores can protect local nature by eating and trampling on biodiversity-threatening invasive plant species. Where's the logic in that, you might object? Because wouldn't the large animals also eat and trample native plants? But this is not the case. Native plants have evolved such they can withstand brutal treatment from species of herbivores that have coexisted with them for millennia, while invasive plants usually cannot. This is the conclusion of a new study from Aarhus University and the Wildlife Institute of India, which has just been published in the scientific journal Nature, Ecology, and Evolution. The study shows great potential for using large herbivores as a natural weapon to prevent invasive plants from outcompeting native species. At least it works in India, where the researchers gathered their data, more specifically from the world's largest wildlife survey using camera traps, which takes place every 4 years, as well as India's extensive monitoring program for plants. However, the researchers point out that the results are also relevant for areas that do not have herbivores quite as large as those in India. More about this later. The study is based on what researchers call mega-herbivores, animals weighing more than 1 ton. In India, they are elephants, rhinos, wild water buffalo, and Indian bison, the largest and heaviest bovine in the world. The study demonstrates a positive correlation between the number of mega-herbivores and the balance between native and invasive plant species. Where there are many mega-herbivores, there are also many native plants and fewer invasive plants. And vice versa, in places where invasive species predominate, there are few or no mega-herbivores. Except in some areas in India where invasive plant growth has become so tall and dense that mega-herbivores cannot get to it. Because the UN has designated invasive species as one of the 5 most important threats to global biodiversity, invasive species are animals, plants, and fungi that are introduced to areas to which they would not spread themselves, and also harm native biodiversity. These biological invasions also impose enormous costs on society, and more than 120 billion US dollars has been spent worldwide over the last 50 years on combating and controlling them, without any great success. Because their large size means they have to eat a lot, and they are used to eating many different plant species, even species with less nutritional value, because they simply cannot afford to be picky. Therefore, they are more likely to include unfamiliar plants in their diet. We're talking about the mega mammal. What are they called again? The mega herbivores. I already forgot. The research team couldn't have included smaller species of herbivores in the study, but their roles in the local ecosystem are more complex. There are also on the menu for tigers and leopards. Elephants are not. Usually. The baby elephants are. And so we return to how we can apply the study in countries without elephants, rhinos, and all of the other mega-herbivores. You don't need a mega-herbivore to keep invasive plant species at bay. Slightly less large and medium-sized species can have a similar effect. Although some of the cattle released in rewilding projects in zoos can grow to be more than a ton, animals weighing less than a ton can have a similar effect. In Hungary, it's been shown that water buffalo drive away the invasive giant goldenrod, a species that is also a problem in Denmark. Scottish Highland cattle are also used in Denmark to keep down rose hip bushes, an Asian species that is often considered problematic in Danish nature, says Professor Jens Christian Svenning from Aarhus University. The study lead author, Ninad Avanash Mungi, is a postdoc at Aarhus University, and he stressed that the size of grazing animals is not decisive in the fight against invasive species. You can easily use a mixture of large, medium, and small herbivores. Deer, buffalo, cattle, and horses work well together in rewilding projects, and together they can target different invasive species. They also make efforts more flexible and resilient, he says. It'd be a really good idea to carry out a large-scale European biodiversity survey like the one in India, which holds the Guinness World Record. Europe has more money to invest in nature and nature restoration. You hear that from India? Freaking, they've thrown down the gauntlet. Europe, you have to do your wide biodiversity study next, or else, I don't know, India's gonna call you out. Meet them at the corner block. I don't know. But there you go. If you are dealing with some invasive species, get a herbivore and they'll eat it for you. Your story.
Well, Europe doesn't have elephants.
They can just start importing. You know what? You didn't listen to what I said. You don't need an elephant. Yeah. You can have medium size.
I know.
Okay.
That's true. Big cows.
Big cows can do it. Yeah, and horses.
Giant oxen.
Yeah.
And good news, tech news. This is from IEE Spectrum. Ethernet is still going strong after 50 years. Let me take my. All right. That's on here. This is an article from Joanna Goodrich. The Xerox Palo Alto Research Center in California has spawned many pioneering computer technologies, including the Alto, the first personal computer to use a graphical user interface, and the first laser printer. The park facility also is known for an invention of the Ethernet, a network technology that allows high-speed data transmission over coaxial cables. Ethernet has become the standard wired local area network around the world and is widely used in business and homes, and is honored this year as an IEEE, that's 3 E's, milestone, a half-century after it was born. Ethernet's development began in 1973 when Charles P. Thacker, who was working on a design of the Alto computer, envisioned a network that would allow Altos to communicate with each other, as well as with laser printers and with Park's gateway to the ARPANET. ARPANET was a precursor to the internet. Park researcher Robert M. Metcalf, an IEEE fellow, took on the challenge of creating the technology. Metcalf soon was joined by computer scientist David Boggs. Metcalf and Boggs had two criteria. The network had to be fast enough to support their laser printer, and it had to connect hundreds of computers within the same building. The Ethernet design was inspired by Additive Links Online Hawaii Network, or the AlohaNet, a radio-based system at the University of Hawaii. Computers transmitted packets prefaced by addresses of the recipients over a shared channel as soon as they had information to send. If two messages collided, the computers that had sent them would wait a random interval and try again. Metcalf outlined his proposal and then called the Alto Aloha Network in a now famous memo to his colleagues. Using coaxial cables rather than radio waves would allow faster transmission of data and limit interference. The cables also meant that users could join in or exit the network without having to shut off the entire system, Metcalf said in the 2004 oral history conducted by the IEEE History Center. There is something called a cable television tap, which allows one to tap into coax without cutting, Metcalf said. Therefore, Boggs and I chose coax as our means of communication. In the memo, I described the principles of operation: very distributed, no central control, a single piece of ether Thus the name Ethernet stuck. Metcalfe and Boggs designed the first version of what is now known as the Ethernet in 1973. It sent data up to 2.94 megabits per second and was fast enough to feed the laser printer and easy to send through the coax, Metcalfe told the IEE History Center. A 9.5 millimeter thick and stiff coaxial cable was laid in the middle of a hall in the park building. The 500 meter cable had 100 transceiver nodes attached to it, with end connectors known as vampire taps. Each of the taps, small boxes with a hard shell, had 2 probes that bit through the cable's outer insulation to contact its copper core. These new nodes could be added while existing connections were live. Each vampire tap had a D-type connector socket in it, consisting of a plug with 9 pins that matched it to a socket and 9 jacks. The sockets allowed Alto computers, printers, and file servers to attach to the network, which the D-sub-miniature 9-pin connector is standard. To enable the devices to communicate, Metcalfe and Boggs created the first high-speed network interface card, the NIC, a circuit board that is connected to a computer's motherboard. It included what is now known as an Ethernet port. The researchers changed the name of the original Alto Aloha network to Ethernet to make it clear that the system could support any computer, reflected in a comment that Thacter had made early on that a coaxial cable is nothing but captive ether, park researcher Alan K. recalled. Metcalfe, Boggs, and Thacker and Butler W. Lamson were granted the U.S. patent in 1978 for their invention. They continued to develop their technology. In 1980, Park released Ethernet that ran at 10 megabytes per second. That update was done in collaboration with researchers at Intel and the Digital Equipment Corp, DEC. The created version of the Ethernet for broad industry use, according to the milestone entry. Ethernet became commercially available in 1980 and quickly grew into the industry LAN standard. To provide computer companies with a framework for technology, in June 1983, Ethernet was adopted as a standard by the IEEE 802 Local Area Network Standards Committee. Currently, the IEEE 802 family consists of 67 published standards and 49 projects under development. The committee works with standard agencies worldwide to publish certain IEEE, lots of E's, 802 standards as international guideline. I3E, let's call it. A plaque recognizing the technology will be displayed outside the park facility. It will read, Ethernet wired LAN was invented at Xerox Palo Alto Research Center Park in 1973. It inspired the AlohaNet packet radio network and the ARPANET. In 1980, Xerox, DEC, and Intel published a specification for 10 megabits per second Ethernet over the coaxial cable that became the standard. Later, augmented for higher speeds in twisted pair, optical, and wireless meter, Ethernet became ubiquitous in home, commercial, industrial, and academic settings worldwide. There's your little history of the Ethernet. We could go way deeper into this, but we only have so much time.
Yeah, so people don't know what's running their computer right now, basically. Lots.
It's communication.
Yeah.
It's the communication network that we all use.
The power of technology. Speaking of technology, Ireland is trying to ban smartphones in school, which I kind of agree with. As somebody who grew up with smartphones slowly entering the school zone, right? First it was like just the normal mobile phones with the text language and all that stuff. And then smartphones happened, and you know what happened? A lot of bad stuff like child pornography, because kids don't know that sharing pictures of themselves naked is considered a criminal offense, and it was happening a lot, and it would be used as revenge porn, as you would call it. I have a picture of Stacy naked, so she better do what I say, or I'm gonna share it with the whole school, and her life's ruined, and she's gonna have to move out of town because she won't be able to go to school anymore. It's been a classic story in so many things, and Ireland is trying to stop these fears from happening. Fearing the impact of phone use on their children's mental health, a small Irish town came up with a town-wide voluntary pact. 8 months on, signs are that it's working well, and the government is using it as a blueprint. This is by Joe Caird at the Education, Society and Wellbeing. Parents of tweens will likely be aware of the daily battle over when to give their child a smartphone. They are probably forced into discussing it over breakfast, on the school run, at bedtime, after all. No kid wants to be left out if their friends all have one. Which is why a town in Ireland came together to devise a solution. Parents and teachers in Greystones, County Wicklow launched a town-wide No Smartphone Code in May, when teachers from the town's 8 primary schools wrote to parents asking them to sign up to the ban. By coming together en masse, the thinking went, parents could do away with the peer pressure around smartphone ownership. That's right. Instead of peer pressuring the children, peer pressure the adults, because they're the ones who should be dealing with that. Nothing like your family getting ostracized because you bought your kids a smartphone. Those are the McMillans. They bought a phone for their child. Don't talk to them. Now ministers in the Irish cabinet have approved new guidelines on the banning of smartphones in school, which were brought by Education Minister Norma Foley on the 7th of November. The proposals would help parents to collectively implement smartphone bans with government support. Ministers are also considering outlawing the sale of smartphones to all children of primary school age. We can already see smartphones creeping into our primary schools, explained Rachel Harper, head teacher at St. Patrick's School, which led on an initiative. Parents, even at a junior end, were already getting worried about what age their kids are going to be asking for smartphones. Parental concerns around the dangers of smartphones are justified, according to the latest scientific research. In 2020, a systematic review of academic studies investigating smartphones, social media use, and youth mental health found that, in the last 10 years, mental distress and treatment for mental health conditions had risen in parallel with the use of smartphones by children and adolescents. With a smartphone at the click of a button, they can get on the content that's really beyond their years, explained Harper. Waiting until secondary school opens up time for children to develop the emotional maturity to deal with, say, coverage from a war zone, as well as learn vital skills for engaging safety online. I kind of agree with this statement because a lot of companies that run social media platforms are like, think of the children, and all the rest of the adults are like, why are there children on my website? Just because they're children doesn't mean they belong here, right? I believe, for example, Twitch has a 12 age limit. So if you actually type in Twitch, which is a streaming service, I am 12, you will instantly get banned. It will ban you just from saying I am 12 in chat. So I think more websites need to actually rigorously control who is on their websites, because just writing down, I was born in 1986 isn't the best thing. That relies on honesty. Relies on honesty to, totally, I was born in 1986. Totally know what it was like. There's also a desire, said Christina Capatina, a Greystones parent whose daughters are aged 11 and 9, to prioritize face-to-face interaction over digital ones for as long as possible. Childhood is getting shorter, she said. It's really important for them to be in a place where they can be happy and enjoy being out, just being children. Being child is actually an early invention. I think back in the 40s, children didn't exist.
Childhood's getting longer and longer and longer.
Being a child was not a concept until like after post-war.
Exactly.
Nobody was allowed to be a child before then.
Whoever said childhood is getting shorter is full of shit. Thank you. All right.
Parents in Greystones are now empowered to hold off giving their kids access to devices until the age of 12, when they transition to a secondary school in Ireland. 8 months since the ban came in, what has the impact been? It has completely solved the problem, said Capatina. Instead of having long conversations about it, this is so simple. The code is voluntary, so some parents have chosen not to take part, but enough have signed up to create a sense of phonelessness being the norm. While some in the media have argued that the code demonizes technology, Harper refutes this. We are not against technology. We are not against phones. We are simply asking them to wait until secondary school. I think I got my first phone when I was in 7th grade, so I think I was also 12 or 13. So I'm not sure when secondary school starts for Ireland, but I think they have a longer secondary school, like a 6 years instead of 4. So
Ireland is the ones worried about the childhood becoming shorter.
Yeah, this is from Ireland. Yeah.
Hey,
they said the launch of their
childhood needs to be shorter. That's the news. Childhood needs to be shorter. It needs to stop at 18. End of
yeah,
branch.
I'm still a child because I'm 30. That's what's happening now.
People can't buy houses anymore till they're 106.
Yeah. She said the launch of the No Smartphone Code led the school principals all over the world getting in touch with messages of support, an indication, it seems, of how universal parents' fears over childhood smartphones are. And with ministers now working on guidelines for communities that wish to follow the Greystones' footsteps, Harper is proud of all she and the fellow parents have achieved. It's nice to be an ambassador in a positive way, she said. So there you go. Some positive news. There's children being protected from seeing things they really don't need to be seeing. I don't even want to see them, I'll be honest. I'm an adult, and I don't want to be seeing them either, but they're all over the internet, and they don't know how to protect themselves because there's no... What's easier, telling all the parents to not give their kids phones, or creating a class where you educate students on how to deal with phone use and internet use? The parents one is easier. Nobody's going to put money into a class to teach kids that they probably won't even listen, because let's be honest, everyone's been a 12-year-old. You're like, they're telling me not to do something, I'm not listening. So
I think a long time ago we started protecting children from work. I'm not saying that was a mistake, because we don't need forced labor camps of 8-year-olds working 12 hours.
Yeah, 9-year-olds don't need to be dying in the mine. That's not necessary.
However, like you said, childhood is a recent invention. 100 years ago, you went to work when you were 12 in a factory, field in a city. You went to work at the textiles where your small fingers could work those machines a lot easier.
So but now we just have robots to do that, so we don't need children.
Yeah. We don't need children there. We don't need children. There's a
to work at a textile mill. The robots are small enough now; they don't need.
Right.
But I get what you're saying. What you're trying to say, if I can translate your words for the general audience, is that children back in the day were given a sort of sense of responsibility, and now they're just given a carefree kind of like, just go live your life and don't worry about anything. And then when you turn 18, suddenly you're like, you have to have responsibility. And then you're like, but this whole time I didn't need it. There's no kind of lead up to responsibility. You're kind of just tossed in the pool and said, learn how to swim, asshole. And that's about it.
And children are raised to be mascots for their parents instead of actual people that have responsibility.
Exactly.
It's like you can be a child till you're 30, 40 now. It's like, let me just cuddle with my toys forever. Come on, man. You got to do something. Anyway, sorry.
Go change the world. That's the end of my article. Yeah. Your story.
Okay. All right. More good Tuesday News Day now that we beat that story to death. The Earth. This is from IFLscience.com Health News. Oh, no, Earth News. Kathy Evans. It's about the space lasers. Earth just received a laser beam message from 16 million kilometers away. This could change the future of spacecraft communication. A deep space experiment traveling on NASA's Psyche spacecraft has just beamed a message via laser to Earth from far beyond the moon for the first time, an achievement that could transform how spacecraft communicate. In the farthest ever demonstration of this type of optical communication, the Deep Space Optical Communications, DSOC, beamed a near-infrared laser encoded with the test data from its position around 16 million kilometers or 10 million miles away, which is around 40 times farther than the moon is from the Earth, to the Hale telescope at Caltech's Palomar Observatory in California. Hey, I've been there. Hike up that mountain. The DSOC is a 2-year tech demonstration riding along on Psyche, I guess it's Psyche, as it makes its way to the prime target, asteroid Psyche. The demo achieved its first light on November 14th, according to NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, which managed both missions thanks to an incredibly precise maneuver that saw its laser transceiver lock into JPL's powerful uplink laser beacon at its Table Mountain Observatory, which allowed the DSOC's transceiver to aim its downlink laser at Caltech's observatory 130 kilometers or 100 miles away. So we got several different communications links is what they're saying. Achieving the first light is one of the many critical DSOC milestones in the coming months, paving the way towards higher data rate communications capable of sending scientific information, high-definition imagery, and streaming video in support of humanity's next giant leap, sending humans to Mars. Trudy Cortez, a director of technology demonstrations at NASA HQ, said in a statement, Optical communications have been used to send messages from Earth orbit before, but this is the farthest distance yet by laser beams. In a laser beam of photons is moving at the same direction, the same wavelength. Laser communication can transmit vast amounts of data at unprecedented speeds by packing data into oscillations of these light waves, encoding an optical signal that can carry messages to receiver via infrared, invisible to human beings. Infrared is just below the light spectrum. We can see visible light, and we can't see infrared, which is down here. Ultraviolet we can't see either, and that's just above the visible light spectrum. All right. NASA usually uses radio waves to communicate with missions farther than the moon, and both use electronic waves to transmit data. But the advantage of laser beams is that much more data can be packed in much higher, tighter waves. According to NASA, the DSOC tech demo aims to show transmission rates 10 to 100 times greater than current top radio communication systems. Allowing the transmission of more data will allow future transmissions to carry much higher resolution science instruments, as well as allow for faster communications for potential deep space missions, live video, live streams from the surface of Mars, for example. Optical communications is a boon for scientists and researchers who always want more from their space missions. One, enable human exploration of deep space. More data means more discoveries. However, there are some challenges to test out first. The farther the distance the optical communications has to travel, the more difficult it gets, as it requires pinpoint precision to point the laser beam. Also, the photon signal will get fainter, taking longer to reach the destination, eventually creating lag times in communications. During the test on November 14th, the photons took around 50 seconds to travel from Psyche to Earth. By the time Psyche reaches its farthest distance, it will take around 20 minutes for them to travel back. This is long enough for both Earth and the spacecraft to have moved, so the lasers on both need to adjust for this change of position. So far, record-breaking technology demonstration has been very successful. The test was first to fully incorporate the ground assets in a flight transceiver, requiring the DSOC and Psyche operations team to work in tandem, said Mira Srinivasan, operations lead for DSOC at JPL. It was a formidable challenge, and we have a lot more work to do, but for a short time, we were able to transmit, receive, and decode some data. Or as Abby Biswas, project technologist for DSOC at JPL, put it, we were able to exchange bits of light from into deep space. Exchanging bits of light to and from deep space could be the game-changing feature of how we communicate in space exploration. So as I was saying before I lost my link, it's like the difference between AM radio and FM radio. AM radio is this big signal with lots of interference, but it travels great distances, it really does. However, FM, no interference, travels short distances, but it's more pinpoint. You can't put up a big antenna and receive these huge signals. Lasers are even smaller signals. They really got to be pinpoint. So even though it's going to be a clearer signal and it travels faster, it's also susceptible to stuff being in the way, basically, the way to put it.
Like giant mountains or tunnels,
Or stars or asteroids or whatever's out there in
Yeah, and we
space,
talk a lot
right?
about that a lot on our Stranger Things reactions, where we're like, how the hell is this radio
Yeah,
going this far? There's no way.
they're underground using a radio. Okay, good one. Get them radio waves that bounce way above the ground. Okay,
Is that
good
it?
story.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. In culture news, has Banksy's name been revealed this whole time? Now, I was talking about this the other day when we talked about Banksy.
Yep.
I was like, didn't they do an interview with him where he was just there, his face and everything, but like it was covered like this, but you could still see his eyes, right? You can discover someone's identity from their eyes very easily. And I thought that everyone knew who it was secretly and was just pretending they didn't know, because you get way more press if you're a secret artist, right? Who are they? Woo! You know? You get way more press if nobody knows who you are. So, has Banksy's real name been revealed? Unearthed 2003 interview seems to unveil the artist's identity. This is from our friend David Morquand, who's freaking, I don't know, dropping the secret. He's not being paid out by big street art, and he's gonna reveal who Banksy really is. A lost BBC interview with Banksy, one of the earliest known radio interviews with him, has been unearthed, and with it, possibly the secretive artist's identity. Celebrated Bristol-based graffiti artist, Banksy seemingly revealed his true name in a newly unearthed interview from 2003. The interview, which was never released until now, is being shared for the first time as part of a special episode being broadcast for BBC Radio 4's The Banksy Story. The famous artist, who has for decades remained anonymous, spoke to former BBC arts correspondent Nigel Wrench to mark the opening of Banksy's 2003 Turf War show in East London. Wrench asked if he could use Banksy's real name in the interview, citing that the newspaper The Independent had already used it in the past, asking the artist to confirm if his name was Robert Banks. "It's Robbie," Banks clarified. That was my best attempt at a British accent. There we have it, or do we? One of the most famous artists of our century rose to prominence through a series of graffiti pieces that appeared on buildings across the country, marked by the satirical themes. He was always chosen to keep his identity unknown, a way of allowing him to continue his art without the constraints of fame, even though he's still famous, even without nobody knowing who he is. But it's the anonymity which has served as a means of protection from police prosecution. There has been many speculation over the years as to who the infamous street artist could be. The theories are numerous, but some of them seem more credible than others. Founder of Massive Attack, Robert Denaja, also known by his pseudonym 3D, is also a graffiti artist and has been one of the most popular Banksy candidates. The correlation between the band's concert dates and new artworks has previously given fans, amateur sleuths, plenty to go on. Oh, like, they went to Detroit, and then there was a graffiti by Banksy in Detroit. It's all makes sense now. Something like that. Other scenarios include Jamie Hellwit, the co-founder of the band Gorillaz, Bristol resident Robin Gunningham, Neil Buchanan, the host of several children's art shows on the British television, who during the pandemic was forced to release a statement denying his involvement with the Banksy persona, and the possibility it could be a collective artist as opposed to just one-man band. And now it seems that it's Robbie Banks, unless this is also a pseudonym, and we're all still none the wiser. After all, Banksy has always been incredibly careful with regards to masking his identity. It seems unlikely he should have let the mask slip, even if the interview was 20 years ago, and he may have been a temporary slip-up. Still, Rob Banks sounds a bit too neat considering the artist's activist proclivities. What do you think his name would be? Rockin' Sockin'? Like, what do you mean? Oh, he's just a normal guy. Everyone's just a normal guy. Even freaking, Snoop Dogg has a normal name. Robbie Banks is a normal name for a secret artist. No, yeah, you're right, it is. All things considered, do you really need to know whose Banksy's true identity is? Not really. Solve the riddle and you symbolically dent or destroy the artist's tantalizing elusiveness and his sense of unpredictability. I don't think it's gonna cause that much harm if you find out who he is. He could be anyone. I don't agree with any of David's opinions. His opinions are so flambastic to me, but he could be anyone, and maybe that's the point. Anonymity and mystery are two of the most vital parts of Banksy's brand, and uncovering his or their identity would mean taking away the artist or artist's principal way of artistic expression. So maybe Robbie is an alias, and us continuing to guess is probably for the best. But unless they masked his voice, I'm pretty sure we know it's a he. But like you said, it could be collective. So maybe it's 5 other people, and there's a woman, and a non-binary person, and a trans person. Damn it, all of the things Banksy is. Banksy is humanity itself. Okay, there's our short little story on Banksy and how we still don't know who they are, and it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's like Spartacus.
It's gonna be like... Sorry?
Like Spartacus. Like Spartacus. I am Banksy. All right.
It's going to be just like when Daft Punk revealed their faces. People are like, oh, they're just French dudes. Yeah, they've always been French dudes. Surprise.
I mean, yeah.
It's something new.
I think people were anticipating it being like Sonic the Hedgehog or something.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's a total different entity. It's not human
like,
at all.
A guy from Bristol looks like a guy from Bristol.
Yeah.
You know, that's
shit. He's got British teeth and everything. Holy shit! Hi, the children. All right. This day in history. 1783, the first crewed hot air balloon was made by Jean-François Pilatre de Rosier and Francois Laurent Marquis d'Alarnay. They had long names in France. Traveling from the Chateau de la Meute, crossing the Bois de Boulogne on the edge of Paris in a balloon made by Joseph Michael and Jacques Etienne Montgolfier. There you go. Me trying to pronounce French stuff. 1806, the Continental System, a blockade designed to close the entire European continent to British trade, was proclaimed when Napoleon issued the Berlin Decree. 1878, Lord Lytton, the Viceroy of India, launched the Second Anglo-Afghan War. Way to go, idiot. 1898, Belgian artist René Magritte, one of the most prominent surrealistic painters whose bizarre flights of fancy blended horror, peril, comedy, and mystery, was born. 1920, American baseball player Stan Musial was born. He was considered one of the great hitters. 1920, on Bloody Sunday, the Irish Republican Army killed 11 Englishmen suspected of being intelligence agents, and the Black and Tans took revenge that same afternoon, attacking spectators and players at a Gaelic football match in Croke Park, Dublin, killing 12 and wounding 60. So the final score in that one was Black and Tans 12 and the Irish Republican Army 11. 1922, Rebecca Ann Felton of Georgia was sworn into office, becoming the first woman seated in the U.S. Senate. Felton, who was appointed to the seat, served only 2 days. What the hell was the point? 1931, the horror classic Frankenstein, based on the stage adaptation of Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley's 1818 novel, was released in the United States, and it helped make the hulking monster, who was portrayed by Boris Karloff, one of the most recognizable characters in film history. 1964, the Verrazano Bridge, Narrows Bridge, spanning New York Harbor from Brooklyn to Staten Island, opened to traffic. So that big old bridge has been open since 1964. 1995, a peace agreement known as the Dayton Accords was reached by the presidents of Bosnia, Croatia, Serbia, ending the Bosnian War. In 2000, the United Farm Workers called off a boycott of California table grapes begun in 1984 by union organizer Cesar Chavez, saying the goals of the strike had been met. In 2002, the NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization Summit meeting in Prague extended an official invitation to become new alliance members to Bulgaria, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Romania, Slovakia, and Slovenia. In 2017, after some 37 years as leader of Zimbabwe, first as prime minister, later as president, Robert Mugabe resigned from office as the parliament began impeachment proceedings. Featured event on this day. Signing of the Mayflower Compact. On this day in 1620, 41 male passengers on the Mayflower prior to landing in Plymouth, Massachusetts, signed the Mayflower Compact, by which they agreed to abide by the laws the new government will establish. And birthdays. Featured birthday today, Voltaire, French philosopher and author, born on November 21st, 1694 in Paris, France, and died May 30th, 1778, also in Paris, France, at the age of 83. Other birthdays. It is the birthday of Björk, Icelandic musician of the let me think of the name of this. What was the name of their band? The Cranberries? The Cranberries. Troy Aikman, born in 1966 on this day. Baseball player Ken Griffey Jr. was born this day in 1969, and American football player and TV host Michael Strahan's birthday today. It was born in 1971. And it's also National Stuffing Day. So don't forget to get stuffed today. Go get stuffed. It's National Red Mitten Day. Go get stuffed with a red mitten. There's a good insult for you. If we're going to have, I'll get stuffed on a red mitten. It's also World Television Day, World Hello Day, and National Gingerbread Cookie Day. So it's World Hello Day. And practice the several ways to say hello in many different languages. Bonjour, Alamera, Hayo, Guten Tag, Hola, Bueno, Buongiorno. How do you say it in Italian?
Why do you think I know Italian?
Buongiorno. There you go. Hello in other languages. Hola. Guten Tag. Hey, your story. Or that's it. That's today.
Yeah, that's it.
Today.
You want to say goodbye, and then I'll do the outro with the mic drop then?
Sure.
Okay.
So this is Roger saying goodbye for the United States, where winter's starting to turn.
And this has been Allison from the Netherlands here on Before Coffee. What's the date? I never do the date, so I never know what day it is. Before
Voltaire
Coffee on November
us
21st, 2023. Here is your mic drop.
It is forbidden to kill. Therefore all murderers are punished unless they kill in large numbers and to the sound of trumpets. Cherish those who seek the truth, but beware of those who find it.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.